Hey friends, David Miller, Los Angeles Creative, bringing you another gear review YouTube. Long time since I've done one of these because employment and moving and all that stuff made it really difficult to try out new gear. But my friend, my daughter, and I were headed to Outside Lands, which is a festival in San Francisco. The thought came up with my friend Bradley and I, because she's a photographer, I'm a photographer. We want to take a good camera into this festival, but they don't allow professional cameras. You look on festival websites, their FAQs, you find they'll say you can have a camera that has small lens, ones that aren't detachable. Those are fine, little personal guys, but anything that you swap out gear has a longer lens, they consider professional. You have to have, photo credentials, be hired by an artist or the venue to be the pro photographer on site. So we knew that these little Fuji X100 series cameras could probably pass muster. And, long story short, it did. I did get this into Outside Lands Festival. But in the research up to the festival, I started fiending for the X100V, which is the top of the line flagship of the X100 series, came out a couple years ago. I'm not really sure if it's supply chain shortages or what it is that makes them so pricey on the aftermarket, but if you want to buy one new, it's roughly $1,300 and you're gonna be waiting months to get it. Or you can go on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, all those places and get one for $2,000. So this isn't a video about whether the X100V is worth $1,300. It's a video about whether the X100V is worth $2,000, because that's what people are paying for these things. So right off the bat, I took this with Bradley, I took this with my daughter. Both verbalized at some point, no, this thing is not worth $2,000. I'm gonna get into why soon. I am a connoisseur of cameras. No, I'm just kidding. I really like cameras. I have been working with Fujis for a long period of time. XT2, XT4, lost that one, went back to an XT3, which is what this is being recorded on right now. And, hopefully XT5, some of the other stuff, I've gone mostly the route of Fuji lenses. I've never gotten any third-party things. Never had one of these little X100 guys. They are marketed as ideal for street photography. Their lens that's fixed on here is 23 millimeters. That's like 35 mil on, your more traditional full frame cameras, DSLRs. And street photography, I gotta be honest with you, not my thing. I like some of the classic street photographers for sure. I've done videos on Diane Arbus, but Diane Arbus was, to me, more of a portrait photographer who sought out interesting subjects than the kind of person who, did Humans of New York style thing where they just walk around the street and photograph people and have conversations and objects and things like that. Honestly, if I want to do that kind of photography, I do just use my phone, because it sounds bad, but one, the phone's with me when I'm in those moments, and two, it's just the amount of effort I'm going to put into street photography. God bless people who found a way to make this into some sort of high art. I don't think it is. I think street photography is all about being spontaneous and sort of sketching out things, maybe finding environments that you could put more effort into to make art, but there's too much of the found object-ishness of street photography to appeal to me. I'm a person who wants a little bit of construction in what we make. That said, I highly see the value in having a quality camera that I can take into a festival, that I can take into a band environment, that I can take places that I would just look obtrusive, conspicuous with my long lens. I would probably more likely use this for travel photography than street photography. There is a difference between the two. Street photography to me is what you kind of do in your day-to-day basis. Travel photography is when you're someplace special. So if we were going to Kathmandu. We were going to, well, we were in San Francisco, but there was nowhere to park, so we didn't get any good cityscape type stuff, you know. That might be ideal for this. Anything that has like a nice wide angle that isn't too silly and distorted is great for any sort of travel photography, because it's a mix of architecture, people and fashion, and vistas. It's those three things together that kind of showcase what an environment, a culture is like. There's detail shots of like food and clothing and things like that. If you were to open up a National Geographic or Life magazine, you know, you're gonna see the formula where there's wide, there's mid, there's close-ups, there's portraits, there's action, there's details, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, into the details of the X100V in my experience. Number one, it has all these like film recipes that people kind of geek out on. I can make all of those in Lightroom, to be perfectly honest. We did try shooting on our drive to outside lands with some of these film recipes. They looked kind of cool and vintage in the camera. When I attached the card to my phone and downloaded them and put them in Lightroom Mobile, I instantly like drained the yellow out. You know, I appreciated how much it looked like 35mm film. And at this stage in my career, now that I don't have access to a darkroom and you know, I've had a lot of trouble with 35mm cameras where I've just like ran through some film and then turned out nothing came out. Not because I didn't know what I was doing, but because these vintage cameras are like, there's something wrong inside them. And I just sort of like wasted a lot of money buying the film, getting it developed, wasted the time scanning if I did scan. You know, I like 35 with disposable cameras because I know I'm gonna get a solid result. That's about it at this stage in 2023. For my film experience, but very good filmic looking images. When we shot these outdoors, I already had turned on the neutral density filter inside the camera. I thought that was a cool feature and I hadn't seen that before. Once Bradley and I have been experimenting with a lot of like daylight flash, and you know, that is a look that when done properly with like strobes, you see a lot in like high fashion sports photography magazines where somebody's like in a golf course but they're perfectly lit instead of just having like harsh blazing sun, emphasizing all the wrinkles of the golfers and such. Anywho, yeah, we were experimenting with the neutral density filter inside, also with this tiny little flash up top. This tiny little flash is so little, it really doesn't do a whole lot for me. I'm sorry, like I have an additional flash that knocks out everything I need it to knock out, and the stuff I was getting with this, literally neutral density filter, flash, opened all the way up to like f2.8, and some of the results are just like not really popping for me. Did not have time to do a lot of experiments, no neutral density filter with the flash, and I apologize if this is not like as in-depth a review of this camera as you're thinking it should be. I rented it. The reason I rented it is because I couldn't get it any other way. Also, wanted to make sure it was something that was worth using. I'm much more of a renter than an owner these days. I think you have stuff when you need it, and when you're not using it, it becomes more of a liability than an asset. I don't know, it's just more of my mentality right now. I want to be able to be mobile and not own a whole bunch of things, if that makes sense. And I know this isn't very big, but you know, owning a lot of things means you have more stuff to worry about, getting stolen, broken, blah, blah, blah. Was able to get this camera very easily. I used ShareGrid. I've used, you know, borrow lenses before, many other sites where you can connect with other people who own their gear, pay a pretty small rental fee, not have to put a credit card down. Really easy to use. Just go over, pick up the gear, return it at the right time. So we did take this to the concert. We were never gonna get close to the front of any festival act, and even if we did, there was barricades between us and the stage. That wide angle wasn't gonna cut it. I know there's like an attachment telephoto thing. We didn't have that for this trip, and I'm not certain that would have passed getting into the festival unless, because there was 3 of us, we split up the gear between our bags. You know, if one person got searched one place and had like that little telephoto thing, and then I got searched and had this, probably would have made it, but didn't have access to it. We did get close to a stage for a drag show, so we did some shooting So you'll see Bradley shooting with the camera at this drag performance, and then these are our corresponding images. They all had the neutral density filter turned on. It was daylight. Really like neutral density filters during the daylight because it allows you to get more of a portrait look. We shot with a wider aperture, more of a portrait look. If you know, wider aperture, smaller number, bigger hole. Yeah, nothing too thrilling about that drag show performance. I will say, you know, I had this camera turned on to like a high burst speed, and that was fine, but between me and Bradley, we kind of pared it down. We're more like, we want to shoot as if it was film, so we're shooting singles. This camera really struggled to autofocus, and I had face detection turned on. Now, I don't know if it's unique to the camera that I checked out, or if it's an ongoing concern with X100 series or the X100V, but there's a lot of times, and I was in like pretty good lighting, that I was trying to hold this button down, had it on autofocus, and it just wasn't taking a photo. It, you know, wasn't doing its thing. And I'd switch it to manual, and I'd do this, but silly me, I'm so used to looking through a viewfinder and seeing the manual focus actually work, because on the X-T3, it's the EVF. You can switch to an EVF, but I didn't do that. I was looking through here. I'm not used to ever looking through anything but the viewfinder on my camera. Looking at an LCD screen and autofocusing, just not my thing. I had a lot of out-of-focus images. I had a lot of times where I missed something good going on because it wasn't taking the shot for me. And then the big thing is that we took it for Lana Del Rey. That's who my kid and my friend wanted to see more than anything. Stuck in a huge crowd. Everything we shot, filmed, was on our phones. So we rented an expensive camera. We took it. We did a few festival kind of shots that we're happy with. Ultimately, it's back to the phone. So, in my estimation, if you're passionate about travel photography, sure, this is the way to go. But if it's a rare occurrence, renting is great. Another lens for your existing camera is great. This is a very small niche, I think, for people who want to do photography. And I'll be honest, like the lady I rented it from, I don't know how often she uses it, but I don't think it's that often because, you know, the batteries weren't charged. There's no strap on this, as you can see. I'm not throwing her under the bus or anything for her camera habits, but I'm letting you know, like, she had other cameras, and I think those are the ones that got all the attention, all the usage. This was sort of like a cute little thing that, in a circumstance where you can't do anything with the other cameras, you broke this guy out. And yeah, that's it. As a creative portrait photographer, I have very little use for wide angle stuff. I'm not here to like make people look like goblins or weirdos. And there you have it, my sort of like weekend festival experience with the X100V. Film recipes, don't care. Wide angle, it's fine. Neutral density filter was fine, but we didn't have enough time to figure out how to make great work out of it. Got it in the festival, fine, no comments at all. That was great. Really happy with the colors. Struggled on the autofocus. I think the next thing I actually buy Fuji will be a little pancake lens for my existing camera. Just work with that. Work my way up to an X-T5 when I got the cash. Hope you all are doing great in your own creative endeavors out there. Best of luck. Talk to you next time.